girls, today for small group we're going to be talking about the plot of a story. The plot of the story uses all of the story elements, and our objective for today is I can identify the plot of a story. Karina, what's our objective today?
I can identify the plot of a story.
Plot of the story, good. And before we read, boys and girls, today we're going to read the story The Laughter Club. And looking at this story, what kind of story is this? What kind of genre do you think this story is going to be? Shay?
About a club that you make jokes.
Okay, so I'm asking about the genre. So the genre is what kind of story it is. Karina? Realistic fiction. But how do you know by just looking at the cover that this is going to be a realistic fiction? Ryan?
Right here, because a club and laughter is real, but this whole story is made up, and it would be called fiction because an author painted it and made it real.
Yeah. So I can tell by looking at the story and by the front cover that this is a story that's made up. I can look by looking at the pictures, I can see that the author obviously made up this picture, right? But a realistic fiction means that it can really happen in life, and in real life. And so boys and girls, I'm looking at this picture and I see boys and girls wearing normal clothes, they're laughing, but I can also tell it's still a story that's made up. So while we go into this story, we know this is a story that's made up. It's a story that could really actually happen. So that's what we call a realistic fiction. But the story is called The Laughter Club, and we're going to make some guesses about what we think the story is going to be about. Knowing that the story is called The Laughter Club, what do you predict the story is going to be about? Ryan?
A club that makes jokes and they laugh about it.
Maybe about a club that makes jokes? What's a club? You know what a club is? Liliana, what's a club?
A club is like a group of people.
A group of people, yeah. So there's a group of people and they're laughing. So my prediction is that maybe it's about a group of people and they're having fun together and they are laughing. Remember, our strategy for this week is to be talking about the plot of the story. Remember, the plot has a couple of parts to it, and the flow map and the thinking map that we're going to be using today is a flow map. Remember, our flow map is going to be listing a lot of parts of our story elements. It's going to list the beginning, the middle, and the end, but it's also going to talk about the character and the setting. Boys and girls, when I talk about character in a story, what do I mean when I say character in the story? What is a character in the story? Liliana?
A person that is in the story.
A person that is in the story. And so remember, characters are people, animals, and other creatures that are in a story. So it doesn't have to be a person, it can be a creature or an animal. Now we have talked about this semester a lot about how there's how there's two different kind of characteristics of characters, right? There's the external. When I say external, what do I mean when I say external characteristics? Ryan?
External is things that are different about the characters, and internal means the thing that is the same about characters.
Okay, so external means things that I can see. So I'm looking at Shay, and I know that she has a pink shirt, she has a black headband, she's got curly hair, so those are all things that I could see. But internal characteristics are things that maybe I wouldn't be able to see about Shay. I've been with Shay all semester long, and I know that Shay is a really friendly girl. She has a lot of friends. She likes chapstick a lot. She likes to play outside with her friends. She likes to read, and she's a really great student. And I wouldn't know those things about Shay until I get to know more about her. And while we read today in the story The Laughter Club, our characters, we have external characteristics, but they also have internal characteristics where we'll have to go back into the text and we'll have to read to find out and learn more about them. Why do you think it's important to know more about internal characteristics of a character? Elijah?
Because if you don't know about that, then you won't know about, like, if they're nice, or you would just think that they're mean, and then if they talk to you, you just walk away.
Well, so internal helps me more about the characters and helps me dig a little deeper, but it also helps me make predictions about the story. So while we read, it's going to help me kind of predict the story and help me understand the story a lot better. And it also helps me kind of think a lot more, which helps for our reading comprehension. Karina?
In first grade, we were predicting on a station, and we had maps, and it would say, I predict, and we had a storybook, and we would have to write what's going to happen next.
That's a great connection. Awesome. So boys and girls, another story element that we're going to talk about today is setting. And the setting is also really important because the setting is where the story takes place. So sometimes the setting will kind of affect our characters, and then sometimes it'll affect our events, right? And so we talked about that last week when we read the story last week, and the setting and the characters actually really kind of changed the story a lot last week, didn't they? So we're going to continue to read another story this week and kind of figure out how the characters and the setting affect the story or the plot of the story, okay? So before we read, tell me 3 parts of a plot that we need to have when we have a plot. Ryan?
Beginning,
Okay. What else?
middle, and end.
Okay, so we have the sequence of the story. Karina, what else? We got the events. What else do we need to have for a plot?
Characters and settings.
Characters and settings. And the characters and settings affect what?
The
The events of the story. So boys and girls, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be reading the beginning of the story. We talked about this last week. What is introduced in the beginning of the story? Elijah, do you know what's introduced in the beginning of the story?
Like a notebook.
Just in general, what's introduced in the beginning of the story? Every beginning has something in common.
Like, if like in the beginning, they like make something.
It's kind of got an event that kicks it off. But what are 2 things that are introduced down here? Karina?
The event introduces in the beginning
The characters and the setting. So without a character and setting, could we start the story? No. So we have to have the character and the setting in order to start the story. So today, boys and girls, while we're going to be really thinking about those characters and those settings, okay, in the story and how they affect the event. Got it? All right. So boys and girls, before we read, I want to pay close attention to some vocabulary that you're going to see in the story. So boys and girls, this story, our character is going to be trying out. So say try out.
Try out.
Can anybody give me an example of what try out means? Ryan?
You've never tried it and you want to try it out for the first time.
So you want to try something else. Maybe you haven't done something, so you're going to try it out. Yeah, you could try that, but this is kind of a little different. She's going to a tryout. Karina?
Like if it's a tryout, like football, you would go do a tryout for the first at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, so you go and try out for a sports team. So, boys and girls, this story is about sports, and a character in the story is going to go try out, so she's trying out for a certain sport, and we'll read and find out what sport she's trying out for. So this next word is, I'm going to read this word for me. Liliana?
Tumble.
Tumble. Then tumble means to roll. So tumble means to roll. So during the story while we read today, we're going to be kind of thinking about when we tumble. When's the time when you would tumble? Give me an example of that. Shay?
Would you like ballet or something?
You might tumble in ballet. You might roll around. Karina?
In football, when you make a touchdown, you can probably flip into a touchdown.
Yeah, sometimes they kind of tumble and they kind of roll. One more, Ryan?
If you're dancing on the stairs and you tumble down.
You tumble down. So you're not on the stairs, you tumble down. Yeah, you kind of roll down the stairs. I think we have enough. I'll keep it in your hand, Elijah, okay? So next one is cheering. What do you do? Give me an example of what do you do when you're cheering for something? Liliana?
You clap or you could whistle for someone.
Clap or whistle. So you clap or whistle, yeah?
Or like in cheerleading, you could cheer.
You could cheer for the team. Why would you want to cheer for someone? Elijah?
Because if they're playing football and it's the last point, and if they get stopped or if they make the touchdown, they win, so you cheer.
You cheer for them. You say, keep going, so they can win. It makes them feel happy. It makes them feel encouraged. So I bet in this story we'll probably have some cheering going on. This word is?
Imaginary.
Ooh, imaginary. Imaginary means made up or make-believe. Who can give me an example of something that's imaginary that we've never seen before? Something that's made up or make-believe. Shay?
A zebra and a deer mixed together.
A zebra and a deer mixed together. That would be imaginary. I've never seen that before. Karina?
Like camera
Camera
cookies.
cookies? Oh my goodness, that'd be make believe. Can you guys put those in your heads? We have a lot of great examples. I think we have a really good idea of what imaginary means. So we'll be looking out for those words while we read today, and it'll help us kind of help you understand the story a little better now that you know what the story means. Karina, can I wait? Okay. So boys and girls, today we're going to read the Laughter Club. I want you guys to read chapter 1. What chapter are you reading?
Chapter 1.
Okay, so you are, what kind of reading when you read today? Ryan?
Whisper reading.
Whisper reading. Can you show me whisper reading? what do you think you do when you're done reading? Elijah?
Read for fluency.
Read for fluency. Should you be looking at Miss Olson and saying that?
No.
No, because what is Miss Olson trying to do with other students? Liliana?
Try to.
She's trying to listen to them read, right? So I can't listen to them read going, Miss Olson, Miss Olson, Miss Olson, I'm done. Okay, so you gotta make sure you're going back for fluency. But today, boys and girls, what we're reading to find out is we're reading to find out who are some characters that are introduced in the story. So remember, characters are people or animals in the story. So I want you guys looking out for characters. I'm gonna put that right there, that are introduced in the beginning of the story. Remember, we're reading the beginning, so characters and are introduced in the beginning. So I want you guys to read to find that out. Go ahead and take the book, and when you get your book, go ahead and read chapter 1 quietly to yourself. I will hand you a sticky note. I want you guys to write any characters that are introduced on your sticky note. Go ahead and whisper. Are you whispering? All right, can you read for me, please?
Tumbled slowly along the ground. She walked away and sat down on a bench. Amy didn't like to touch football tryouts. Everyone threw the ball too high. Plus, Amy had been sick and out of school for the last 2 weeks. She still felt lazy.
Why did Amy, can you tell me, why did Amy not like football tryouts?
Because it was two-hand touch.
It was two-hand touch, and there's a problem with the ball. Go back and touch.
They were throwing the ball too hard.
They were throwing the ball way too hard. So what's an internal characteristic you can tell me about Amy so far?
Yeah. I could see that it looks like she feels sick and she's sad.
It looks like she feels kind of sick and she's kind of sad. Does she really want to be there? Is she enjoying football? Oh, so I already know some things about Amy already, right?
Yeah,
Good job.
Sometimes it could fix the problem, like if her mom gave her medicine and gloves to keep safe.
So that's a good connection. That's kind of interesting. So knowing that Amy's sick, so you're kind of already predicting what's going to happen in the story, right? Knowing that Amy's sick, so maybe that's what's going to happen in the story. It's a good prediction. We'll have to read and find that out, huh? So Korea, you did a really good job. I think you still need to track when you read, but you're doing a really good job, especially with those multi-syllable words, blending those together, because those get really hard. But you're doing a really good job reading fluently. I think you still just need to practice reading as much as you can so you can be a little smoother as you read. Okay? Good job, sister. Keep reading.
Sandy ran over. Come on, Amy, he said. Try again. You can do it. Amy shook her head. No, I don't want to.
Liliana, can you read, please?
Her head filled with imaginary characters as she read. Amy closed her eyes and fell asleep.
So imaginary characters. What kind of characters are those?
Imaginary characters are like made up.
Made up characters. So while she's going to bed, what is she picturing in her head then?
She's picturing the characters in the book.
The characters in the book, huh? So what's one internal characteristic you can tell me about Amy so far? Do you know that?
Internal about her is she was sick the whole last weeks and she didn't like the tryouts.
She didn't like the tryouts. What are some things that Amy likes to do?
She likes to read books.
She likes to read books. So would that be a good internal characteristic, do you think? Interesting. So I know that sometimes when they do things in the stories, it tells me about who they are as a person, right? As a character. Good job. Keep reading.
Jody was worried. Amy